Now coming to the third subtask of the CSV data analyzer project, we're going to be analyzing the numeric values. That is, we're going to be giving out basic statistics. So as you recall previously, we're going to give out only minimum value, maximum value present in the data and the mean of the total data. Now coming to the objectives, if the data is null or empty, we have to print out an error message saying no data available. And we have to process numeric columns. So if you remember, when we loaded the CSV, we loaded the CSV as a string. But to process numerical info, we need to convert that string value into an integer or a double value. So we have to convert the string value into a double value, and then we have to perform numerical functions. We have to skip non-numeric columns, and we need to use try-catch blocks to ignore exceptions. And for each numerical column, we need to have these following statistics. And you can notice we are printing it out in the form of double data type. Coming to the code, let's look at the basic statistics function. It's going to return void, and we have an array of arrays as an input, which is basically the CSV. And first we're going to handle the null values, that is if the data is null or the data is empty, then we're going to print out no data available, and we're going to return if no data is available. And if data is present, we're going to print out basic statistics. And now we have our for loop over here. So over here we are just going to iterate through each column present. That's why we given int column equal to 0 and column less than headers.length, and headers is the array which contain all the column names. So we have our try block over here. So first we're going to initialize an array of double data type called as values. Now we're going to extract numeric values from each row using a for loop. In this for loop, we're going to iterate through each row present, and over here we're getting the actual value of row using data.getI. And if row of column is not null and row of column is not empty, so column will be a numeric value. So over here we're checking whether or not the data type we're looking at is actually a numeric value or a string value, because row over here is a single element in the array of arrays, which is basically an array. That is, the first element is not equal to null and the first element is not empty. Then we're going to add it to the values array. But where are we actually checking whether or not it's an integer value? So over here inside we have double.parseDouble. So what does this do? So basically double is a class present in Java which has the function parseDouble, which is going to convert a string into a double format value. So we loaded the CSV in string format, but we need a double value to perform the numeric functions. So over here we are converting the string into double value using parseDouble. And what are we parsing? So we are parsing whatever value we are currently iterating through at that particular iteration. Now in the first iteration we will be parsing the first element present in the table. So if you remember, the first element was a name. So that cannot be parsed into a double since it's a string value. That is why we will get an error because of this, and it won't happen. That is why it won't be added to the values array. And as we keep iterating through the table, once we come to numeric values, it will be added to the values array. And now we are checking if values is not empty, that is there are numerical values present. Then we're going to print out column, and then we're going to print out the column name, and then we're going to print out total null values and print out the size of values. So values will contain all the numeric values present in the entire table. So over here we are effectively printing out every single value present. So first we're going to initialize a sum variable which is of type double. We're going to initialize it to 0, and then we're going to run a for loop to iterate through every element present in the values array. And for each element present in the values array, we're going to add it on to the sum variable. So over here sum plus equal to means sum is equal to sum plus values.getI. Values.getI will get each value present in the values array. And now over here we're going to calculate the mean. So if you notice, you're given string.format and %.2f, and after that we're given sum divided by values.size. So this is the formula for finding average, that is the sum by the total number of values. And after getting the average, we want to format it up to 2 decimal places. That's why we use the string.format, and we're given %.2f because we want to format it to 2 decimal places. And now we're going to find the minimum. So basically what we're doing is we are giving the first element as minimum, and we're going to make sure to compare with every element present in the values array. And if there is another value which is less than the minimum, then we're going to assign that as minimum. Therefore, we're going to get the minimum value of the entire array at the last. Then we're going to print out the minimum value over here. And we're going to use the exact same technique to find the maximum, except over there it was less than, over here it's going to be greater than. And over here we have a catch block to catch any kind of error. The reason why we've given continue over here for the error block is because if you notice above, as I told, the first value in the table will be a name, but you can't convert a name into a numerical value. That's why you'll give an error saying, Java cannot convert a string into a number. That's why we need to ignore that, so as to ignore the non-numeric columns. And rest of them are the exact same as the previous subtask. Let's just run this code once. So let me give the file name as data.csv. And let me give show basic statistics. So you can see I've displayed the column which has numeric values and the rest of the other data about that column, which is the exact same as the expected output. Let's just submit this code once. So we passed all 3 test cases. Let's move on to the next subtask.